Following the fall of the Assad regime in Syria on December 8, 2024, the country entered a new era aimed at national reunification. While Damascus pursued dialogue and diplomacy, the Syrian branch of the PKK terrorist organization, the YPG, rejected integration into state institutions and continued its campaign of terror across northeastern Syria. Across areas including Raqqa, Hasaka, and parts of Deir ez-Zor, the group entrenched itself as a de facto authority, ruling by force. Local testimonies and rights groups documented a pattern of abuses, including the forced recruitment of children, as well as the arbitrary detention of and attacks on civilians. Here's a timeline of major YPG atrocities since Assad's fall. On the day the regime collapsed, YPG forces fired rockets at Kharfan village near Manbij, killing 10 civilians. As the reconstituted Syrian Arab army began advancing east to reassert state control, clashes erupted with YPG units. The Syrian Network for Human Rights documented at least 65 civilians killed by YPG sniper fire in Aleppo city between late November 2024 and late January 2025. Damascus announced an agreement with YPG leadership to integrate YPG forces into state institutions. Officials said the deal aimed to reinforce national unity. The agreement quickly collapsed after the terror group violated terms and began expanding attacks. YPG units attempted multiple infiltrations of Syrian army positions in Aleppo, killing 1 soldier. Shelling continued in Manbij and Dar Hafir. More than 50 Arab tribespeople were abducted during YPG raids in Hasaka. Mortar attacks on Aleppo and Manbij countryside killed 2 civilians and wounded 3 others. 2 Syrian soldiers were killed in an attack in the Deir Hafir area. A ceasefire was announced following negotiations in Damascus. Within 48 hours, Syria's defense ministry reported more than 10 YPG ceasefire violations, including the killing of a soldier. 2 soldiers were killed and another critically wounded in an attack near Aleppo. A 13-year-old boy was killed when a landmine planted by YPG forces exploded in Mushifat al-Titan. 2 soldiers were killed and others wounded in an attack on positions in Raqqa province. YPG forces began suffering battlefield losses, territorial setbacks, and rising desertions. Tribal fighters and local armed groups started resisting YPG authority, attacking checkpoints and offices. 5 civilians were killed and several injured in YPG attacks in northern Aleppo, forcing dozens of families to flee. YPG launched hundreds of attacks on Aleppo, shelling residential districts, civilian infrastructure, and army positions. Within days, at least 23 civilians were killed, more than 100 wounded, and around 165,000 people displaced from Ash-Shafia and Sheikh Maqsoud. As the Syrian army launched a retaliatory operation, YPG targeted humanitarian corridors. The terrorist group deliberately cut off Aleppo's water supply. A drone strike also targeted the Aleppo governorate building shortly after a press conference. YPG blew up a strategic bridge in Amtina village, severing access between government and YPG-held areas. Local accounts said YPG forces blocked tens of thousands of civilians from leaving Dar Hafir, using them as human shields. Syrian army units entered Deir Hafir and Meskana, then advanced towards Raqqa and Deir ez-Zor. Water supplies to Raqqa were cut after YPG terrorists destroyed the old bridge over the Euphrates. Shortly after, Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara announced a full ceasefire and a new agreement. Under the deal, YPG were required to withdraw east of the Euphrates. Deir ez-Zor and Raqqa would return to full state control, along with energy resources and border crossings. Despite the ceasefire, Damascus reported that the YPG facilitated the escape of 120 Daesh detainees from al-Shadadi prison. 81 were later recaptured. 2 women and 2 children were among 10 civilians found killed near a Hasaka checkpoint that YPG terrorists had fled the previous day. A separate drone attack in the same city killed 7 civilians. Through killings, abductions, and the sabotage of civilian infrastructure, the YPG terrorist group has left deep scars across northeastern Syria. Officials and analysts say its separatist project continues to undermine national reconciliation and remains a major obstacle to stability.